From Blackfoot to Teton, we've got your District 6 breakdown right here on the East Idaho Prepcast with Lance Taylor.
That's right. It is another edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down everything in Districts 5 and 6. That's all part of the eastern part of the state. The East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com is brought to you by Pure Adrenaline Motorsports, your source for pulse-pounding adrenaline sports apparel and accessories that ensure you have what you need to unleash your inner beast. Lance Taylor rocking the Pure Adrenaline sunglasses, as always. Lance, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was awesome. Actually went down to St. George, Utah. We got in a little bit of the sunny weather, but I heard it was really nice back here in Idaho as well. So
yeah, we've been treated to some unusually nice weather the last week or so.
Yeah, we have. And you did the Montana thing.
Yes, and now here we are kind of back to the grind. So we took a week off from the Prepcast because of the holiday and because we reached the end of the fall sports season. Seemed like a natural stopping point, but now we're back into it, Lance, and we're going to be here all winter long to check in on what's going on with basketball and wrestling because the beat doesn't stop, does it?
No, it does not. Never stops.
That's right. Now, before we officially turn the page on the fall sports season, let's quickly revisit what happened 2 weeks ago because we actually did have several football teams that had a nice championship showing. Of course, Rigby won the 5A title over Highland in a game that honestly was never close. And then Skyline went all the way to Moscow up to the Kibbie Dome and beat Sandpoint basically on their home turf. So for Skyline, back-to-back champs, Rigby, their second title in the last 3 years, and the dominance of East Idaho continues.
Yeah, it ended up really good, and especially when you consider as well that you had a District 5A, which is also in East Idaho. You had West Side win it. Firth played them. Sugar in a double overtime game went down to Weiser. So 3A was represented in the state championship game as well. There were some, Oakley, ended up winning. But I think I don't know necessarily if any of us were surprised at who won it. I think we were surprised with some of the seasons that teams had. For example, Skyline, what a great job turning that season around. They just had some real struggles at times during the season and ended up turning it around and winning another state championship. Rigby, we felt was kind of there all year, that they were kind of the team to beat almost in 5A during the regular season, at least, and there were some questions when they matched up against Meridian, in the state playoffs of how well they were going to do. But wow, kudos to East Idaho.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about West Side because they played on Thursday. They played so early in the proceedings that my head was just kind of wrapped around what happened on Friday and Saturday. But you're right. West Side will actually carry a 32-game winning streak into their season opener next year, which is that's impressive.
Yeah, they returned some key players. They could be very good again next year as well.
Definitely. Well, I know people are very interested to know who won our bet, Lance. We made our predictions for all of the semifinal games in the state of Idaho for football. And we basically said the loser's going to buy dinner and basically at Buffalo Wild Wings. Well, after the semifinal round, we tied.
Basically, that's where we're going.
Yeah, okay. So Buffalo Wild Wings, loser buys dinner. After the semifinals, we were tied. We were dead even. So we're like, let's roll this bad boy over to the championships and see who wins there. Lance wins the bet by a single game. It came down to Skyline, the last time I will ever doubt Skyline in my life.
Yeah, it did. You know what? It was tight the whole time. We were both wrong on some. We were both right on some. And both of us overall were more right on ones than we were wrong. And we had a lot of games in common as well that we had chosen, who we thought would win those games. But it did. It came down to Skyline. And let's face it, because of some of the struggles that Skyline had during the regular season and because of the great play that Sandpoint was putting up, particularly towards the end of the season, picking Sandpoint wasn't a bad pick. You had picked them, and I just felt that Skyline had finally come around to the point where they were going to be really tough to beat. But what I can say is kudos the high school athletes. This is, in the 12 years that I've been back in Idaho, the 12 seasons, this is the best playoff round I've ever seen.
Yeah, top to bottom, it was a really fun postseason for sure. And for Skyline, their defense carried the day again. Second half shutout against Sandpoint. And so for Skyline, people think I hate Skyline because I never picked them to win anything. And I was always like, yeah, they looked good, but there was always a but. I don't hate Skyline. I really don't. I was so impressed with Skyline and how they were able to win, especially traveling all the way up to Moscow. I just, I'd seen them in person and they just had tended to start a little slow, played down a little bit. They always rallied though, right? It never cost them a game in the playoffs. And for that, I credit Coach Scott Berger, the head coach and that staff. And obviously they have great athletes at Skyline as well.
Sure. So you're not an anti-Grizite.
No, I want to make it clear on the record. I am not an anti-Grizite. In fact, I think in both boys and girls basketball, Skyline's going to be pretty good, and it's going to be fun to watch them compete on the basketball.
I've actually had a chance to watch their boys play in the Jamboree as well. So their Jamboree, as it is every year, it just rotates locations, but it's Skyline, Sugar Salem, and West Jefferson. And so I had a good opportunity to watch Skyline early on. And of course, they're going through some of the same struggles that Sugar is, in the sense that a lot of your basketball players play football too. and tryouts had already started before the state championship games took place. So you only had, like, Sugar hadn't even made their cuts yet. So they had like 20 kids dressed for varsity during the Jamboree because they were still making cuts. They still needed to see players, and stuff. And Skyline was going through a bit of the same thing. So, but you know what? Those are things you'll put up with.
Yes, for sure. One last note on Skyline, and then we'll move on to girls basketball. We'll probably start with Skyline. I want to mention an email I got from Lynn Furman, and Lynn emailed me in to just highlight again. This was a young Skyline team, especially on the offensive line. 2 freshmen started on the offensive line for Skyline. You paired that with a great junior in Tui Edwin. I mean, Skyline's offensive line is going to be good next year.
Yeah, they are.
So,
in fact, really, for the next 3 years, Skyline really has a chance to stay top dogs. Now, obviously, other schools, step up and things like that, but it is not out of the realm for them to kind of dynasty over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. So congrats to Skyline, congrats to Rigby, and wouldn't you know it, those are kind of the teams we're expecting to do well in girls basketball this year as well. Lance, if you look at the 5A girls basketball standings right now, who's leading? It's Rigby. They're 4-0. They're 1-0 in the conference. They've got such a good program there. They've got a new coach this year, Todd Barber. But more of the same from Rigby girls hoops.
Yeah, it is. And Rigby always tends to be tough. When Clyde Nelson, of course, he'd been coaching college basketball for years. When Rick's College had their programs, and when they dropped their sports programs, he went over and coached the girls at Rigby and brought a lot of success to that program. Succeeding coaches brought a lot of success, and they're having it again this year. Right now, Rigby, from top to bottom in their sports, is going through a very, very good period.
Yeah, Rigby led by Kylie Danzy and Miley Graham on the basketball court. Right on their heels, though, is Thunder Ridge. We saw how good the Titans were last year. They've got probably the best 1-2 combo in terms of returning players in Aspen Caldwell and Kennedy Stenquist. Here's the interesting thing, Lance, about the 5A High Country Conference. 3 of the 5 teams have new coaches this year, right?
They do.
Todd Barber at Rigby. Luke Sutton takes over the Madison program, and Aubrey Callan is the new coach at Highland. So a lot of new blood in the conference this year.
Yeah, and that Madison program had not changed leaders for years and years and years. And, it's always, it's kind of like their boys went through it a couple of years ago after Hawkins stepped down. Hawkins had been there for, I think, 28 years or 27 years. as their coach, and there's always some changes that you go through. There's some good things that you're able to keep. There's some changes that you're going to bring into a program as well. But either way, they are they're very, the conference is exciting. It's really exciting right now.
Yes. Okay. So Lance, I couldn't even get that right. 4 of the 5 teams have new coaches. Idaho Falls also has a new coach this year, in Shane Seeley. So
That's
4
right.
of the 5 teams have a new coach. That's crazy.
That's right.
So 5A, we think Rigby, Thunder Ridge, going to be duking it out all year long. Madison, maybe a chance to break into the fray there. The 4A High Country Conference is again kind of shaping up to be Blackfoot and Skyline, I think, but Bonneville also has played well out of the gate.
Well, Blackfoot, I'm telling you right now, it really is going to come down to who's going to be able to compete with Blackfoot. I mean, Blackfoot is good, very, very good. I don't know if you saw the score that they put up on Madison, but Blackfoot is fantastic.
And they, of course, Blackfoot, the defending 4A state champions.
That's right.
And they really return, like they're starting 5 essentially from a year ago, right? Hadley Humphreys, who I'm not sure there's anybody in 4A that can handle what she can do inside. She is a double machine. I mean, it was pretty common for her last year to get 20 points and 20 rebounds in a game.
Yeah, not uncommon at all. I mean, they opened up their season beating Madison 60-26. And then you talk about how good the Thunder Ridge team is. Now, they beat Thunder Ridge, but Thunder Ridge made it a game, 63-57, just a 3-point game. And so, you look at that, and that tells you right there how good Thunder Ridge is. But they beat Century, holding Century to 13 points, 55-13. Held Idaho Falls 53-38, and that was a pretty decent showing for Idaho Falls, I felt. 64-32 over Shelley. This Blackfoot team, I don't know what the answer is to figure out the Blackfoot riddle for any teams that are out there this year, because it is a tough riddle.
Yes. We mentioned Hadley Humphreys inside. Izzy RV is back to run the show at point guard. Prairie Caldwell was the MVP of the state tournament last year.
Yeah.
Kiana Wright is a great post. SB Vergara is back. I mean, and they've got a great coach too. Former Blackfoot standout Ramey Odom. Back then she was Ramey Beck. And then she went on to play at Air Force, Lance, where her name is all over the Air Force record books.
That's right. She played at the Air Force Academy in the Mountain West, and did a great job. And we've got some really good, there's a lot of good coaches around the state right now who are ex-ball players at the college level as well. You go out to Burley, you got that same situation out of Burley, who's going to be another good team this year, is Burley. But boy, Blackfoot, I'll tell you what, and I use this example a lot, but if I'm putting money down in Vegas, I am not betting against Blackfoot in any game this year. As I look down their schedule, as long as they have the group they're with right now, I don't see a loss on that schedule. As far as now, it doesn't mean they can't lose, but I think a lot more stars have to align for their opponents to beat them than have to align for Blackfoot to beat their opponents.
Yeah, I agree. Blackfoot looks so talented, and people forget last year Blackfoot had to win a play-in game just to get to state.
That's right.
And then they rattle off the title. That is because Skyline defeated that was such an epic series last year between Blackfoot and Skyline. Skyline, coming into the season, we thought that, okay, this is going to be a team that's built from the outside in with Maddie Olson, who's such a great talent. She committed to play basketball at Montana State University. Well, she suffers an injury during soccer season. Yeah. She isn't available at all for Skyline this year. And so now for head coach Ty Keck, they've got to build almost opposite from the inside out, because Taylor Thomas now is kind of the focal point of the offense, and she's a great player down low.
Yeah, and I'll actually have an opportunity to see Skyline. Sugar Salem happens to play there this week. I'll have an opportunity to see Skyline, so I'm I'm interested to kind of see the eye test, with Skyline and how they are, and you talk about, that epic series last year between them and Blackfoot, how great that was. And then, of course, they met up opening round of the state tournament as well. That was, you hated to see that, but that could happen again because, with max preps and different things, that could very well happen. That's not the most unusual thing, but it was unfortunate to see that happen in first round because it could have made a great championship game as well.
Yeah, so that happened to the Skyline boys basketball team.
That's right. Well. That's right.
Yeah, they're not a big fan of the predetermined bracketing. I know that. Otherwise, in the conference, Blackfoot is the heavy favorite. Skyline, we think, will take second. Bonneville had that great run 2 years ago. They're pretty much starting from scratch. They lost all the players from that team. They have a new coach in Mike Herigfeld this year. We'll see how they do. They've looked good early. Hillcrest has a great player in Macy Larson. It's what about the pieces around her? Kind of the same thing for Shelley with Brindley Cannon. It's can those complementary players emerge as well? Yeah,
it's always tough when you just have one really standout player, because it allows teams to game plan for that individual. When things are spread out and you have others picking up that load, it's a lot tougher to double team somebody, to drop off of people. And so, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Oftentimes what you get, and I think what those two programs are going through this year, speaking of Hillcrest and Shelley, is you kind of hit a place where now you have fewer basketball players and more athletes. And so that kind of limits the amount of scoring you can do. Oftentimes you have to look as a coach and say, hey, let's be realistic. We have the firepower to kind of put in these many points a game. And if a game gets over this amount of points, we're probably going to struggle to win those games. So you really have to gear defensively as well.
And then if we transition to District 5 in the 4A ranks, Century, of course, has had such a stranglehold on that conference, but they're down a little bit this year. They did lose some incredible talent to graduation. And so the door is open for a team like Preston to maybe not sneak their way in, but to take over the reins of the conference.
Yeah. And I had a chance to see Preston last night, actually, in an overtime game with Sugar Salem. Very, very good game. Very good team. The Ward girl is college level talent. And I was very impressed with what Preston brought to the table. They dropped down by about 18 points early. And, a lot of missed layups, things like that. Shots that if you give them 100 of them, they're going to probably make 99, out of those that just weren't falling in at first, but ended up doing very well. They started their season on a loss to a very good Burley team, 39-48. So, single digits there. They beat a good Soda Springs team last night, beat Sugar Salem in overtime, a very good Sugar Salem team. So, Preston's one to watch for.
And another nice development in that conference is Pocatello. Pocatello is a team that went 1-20 last year. They're 3-2 to start the year. They've tripled their win output from a year ago.
Well, Pocatello High School in general is on an upswing right now in their sports. They should be good in boys basketball again this year, and the girls basketball picking up those wins early on in the season, particularly when you're coming off that bad year and the mentality is not a winning mentality sometimes when that happens. So Pocatello looking very good. Their football team, of course, did good this year. Pocatello is on that upswing. And it'll be interesting to see how the season plays out for I almost said for the Indians, but for the Thunder.
That's right. The Thunder. Pocatello's got a really good coach, Sunny Evans. She is the wife of former Idaho State men's basketball coach, Bill Evans.
That's right.
She knows a thing or two about coaching. So
yeah, she does. She does. And about handling players too. That's one of the things where veteran coaches really, I think, can shine. A lot of your young coaches and stuff, they'll have great X's and O's. Their X's and O's will probably be as good as anybody's, but your ability to handle players and personalities and get people to work together, that's always a big thing that a lot of veteran coaches bring in. In fact, I even look at that in the NBA. I look at Phil Jackson. I look at Steve Kerr. When Phil Jackson was playing, his X's and O's weren't all that special. It's in fact, we saw when Michael retired that first time, what happened to their record. His X's and O's aren't that special, but he's a fantastic ego manager. and he can get egos to play together and play as a team. And I think that's what Steve Kerr has brought to Golden State Warriors. I mean, we saw it happen last year when he didn't have all his horses on the floor. Well, his X's and O's when he has to play with the same players everybody else does, or not that special. They're the same as everybody else's. But when he has a lot of big egos together, he's a great ego manager to get them to play the game together. And I think that's what Evans brings to Pocatello as well. I'm not saying those girls have big egos. I'm saying her ability to read players is going to be beyond an entry-level coach.
Well, it's been fascinating to watch their development because this is a team that is kind of learning how to win at the varsity level. They've been young for several years now, and so it is nice to see them kind of putting it together. If we move to the 3A ranks, let's start in District 6, where everything's as clear as mud. Lance, South Fremont's 3-1, Teton is 3-1, Sugar Salem is 2-1.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very good conference this year. When you look at overall athletes, Teton might have the best overall athletes in that. I'm not saying they have the best basketball players, but they are extremely athletic. Coach Coons out there has a group that I remember looking at these kids and thinking, man, I'd love to have them on the track team during the spring because they're that type of an athlete. So it'll be interesting to see how that conference plays out, and that conference might be the best defensive conference at 3A in the state because of the high level of athletes that they have.
Yeah, Sugar is the favorite. They have Haley Harris, Meg Fillmore, Kennedy Gillette, Olivia Crapo, Katie Miller, Natalia Need. They all played last year. They all did great. But, South Fremont returns a lot of talent as well.
South is going to be good this year. It's not going to be a walk in the park.
No,
and that's been a conference that often years it was just a matter of some teams not embarrassing themselves. What I'm saying, it was kind of a foregone conclusion who was going to win it. That's not the case this year.
Yeah, South Fremont
is very good. Having said that, Sugar's very good.
Yes, South Fremont brings back a lot of talent. Riley Neville, Berkeley Yancey, Addie Hill, Josie Angel. The question is, and it's the question that is posed to South Fremont in every sport, is we know you're good, but are you good enough to knock Sugar Salem off the perch?
Yeah, right? And that's the hard thing, especially hard when you only have 3 teams in your conference as well. And I don't know exactly. I'll have to check. You might know the answer to this. I don't know if it's a single team gets into state this year out of the Mountain River Conference, or if it's a team and a half or a team and a quarter. I haven't checked that for the year. I know for volleyball, it was just only one team out of the conference went. There was no playing game, which was unfortunate because South Fremont, their volleyball team was really, I think, one of the best top 5 in the state for girls volleyball, and didn't even get a chance to go.
Yeah, so it is just like volleyball. It's 1 1/4, Lance. So
okay, well, see, in volleyball, they didn't even get 1 1/4.
Oh, they didn't.
No, they just got 1. They just got 1 straight up this year. And so at least if basketball is 1 1/4, you do still have an opportunity to make it. If you're the second place team, it's a tougher road, obviously, but you do have a chance.
Yeah, I think the way that works is second place from District 6 will play second place from District 5. Winner of that game will then play second place from somewhere else.
Like 4 and 3 or
yeah,
whatever it ends up being.
I'm looking at the bids right now, and everybody gets points. So like 1.5 from up north, 2.5 from the Treasure Valley, 1.5 from the Magic Valley. Yeah. So every league is going to have a playing game of some kind, it looks like. So
yeah, well, and oftentimes when you only have 3 teams, you're fortunate to get that quarter even. Have to play a couple games to get in. So.
Yes. So all the teams in District 5 are in the same boat, Lance. Snake River, kind of the favorite, right? They have a great coach in Jeff Stedman. They did lose Josie Stedman, but they have Riley Edlifson, who's a great lead guard. And the Panthers are off to a 4-0 start. They played last night and looked really good.
Yeah, they did. And of course, their head JV coach, who's their head assistant, Cass Baldwin, a lot of experience, college ball player. He's actually a very good friend of mine as well. So he brings in kind of that college knowledge as well, to that program to help assist Stedman there. They're going to be a very good team. I'll tell you what, though, I've had an opportunity to watch Marsh Valley this year, and I felt Marsh Valley's girls last year were only one big man away from possibly competing for a state championship. They were just a small team, and they are again this year, but they're good. if there was a league for 5, 6 and under, they would be the state champion. They're a very good guard-oriented team. They just don't have bigs.
Yeah. And they ran into some problems. They've lost to Sugar Salem already this year, 59-44. They lost to Pocatello, 56-48.
Yeah.
So Marsh Valley will be a team to keep an eye on. American Falls as well. They kind of are reloading. They lost some talented seniors, but they bring back a couple of good players. So that'll be a fun conference to watch.
Yeah.
The game we're going to want to keep an eye on, Lance, is coming up on December. I just had it. December 16th. Sugar Salem travels to Snake River. That could be the best team from 6 against the best team from 5, and then they will return the favor. Snake River will go to Sugar Salem to kick off the new year, January 4th.
Yeah, and I think those are games that people already have marked on their calendar to look at, because those are gauge games. That allows the other teams in your conference as well to look and to say, okay, where does this team in our conference match up against this team in their conference? How have other teams done against that team in their conference? Because these two conferences play each other throughout. I'm assuming, and I haven't looked at it, I'm assuming Snake still has Teton and South on their resume this year as well. Yes. And it gives these teams an opportunity to gauge. But I think when Sugar and Snake match up, that is probably, at least at that point of the season, going to be the premier matchup.
Yeah, Snake River already has a pair of wins over Teton and South Fremont, so looking for the clean sweep against Sugar Salem coming up. As we transition to the 2A level, Lance, I'm telling you right now, Aberdeen looks good. Aberdeen's going to be a tough out this year, and Aberdeen's due.
They're due. They're due to be very good. Of course, they play in a tough conference too. You got Soda Springs there, and you know how good Soda is, but this year it's not going to be a walk in the park for Soda because Aberdeen's very tough. Aberdeen is very, very tough.
Yeah, Aberdeen only had one senior off of last year's team, and so they bring back Yasmin Ortiz, Courtney Phillips, Ellie Watson, Hope Driscoll. It's a good core to build around. Aberdeen's off to a 4-0 start. Now, again, with these prepcasts, as we talk about basketball, they're somewhat time sensitive, right? A team that's 4-0 today could be 5-0 tomorrow. So as we're talking about teams and their records, by the time you're listening or watching this, their record could have changed. So the best way to always be up to date is to just check IdahoSports.com every morning. We're getting the scores every night, updating the standings. That's going to be your best bet to be totally up to date on everything. So
well, and I've had some chance to watch a little bit of film on Aberdeen. Just got sent to me by somebody, and so I watched it. One of the things that I think Aberdeen brings to the table is Aberdeen has an ability to be physical, which if you want to compete with Soda Springs in that conference, you have to be able to match their physicality, because Soda is a very physical team.
Yeah, and Soda is off to an 0-3 start, which is somewhat surprising.
Yep, it is. But you also look who they've played.
Right.
And, there's a lot of colleges that got off to, 0-3 starts, but they were playing Stony Brook and Beaumont, places like that. And they weren't playing a schedule like, a 4-1 or a 5-1 Gonzaga has played, and so anyway.
Yes. Look at the schedule so far. 3 losses to Preston, Ryrie, Sugar Salem. All 3 of those teams could easily be at state in their respective classes.
That's right.
They play Snake River December 1st tonight. That's we're recording this on the 1st, Lance. They play Snake River. They play Ryrie again, and then the big matchup to kick off conference play is Aberdeen on December 15th.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a home game for Soda Springs, and so that's a game that I think they look on their schedule and say, "Hey, we can win that." But when you look and see how tough they played Preston, and a Preston team that took Sugar into overtime last night and won that game. They played Ryrie, a good Ryrie team. And I think Ryrie is a team that Soda Springs feels they can beat. In fact, I think when they step on the floor, they feel they can win every game. And then that 8-point loss to Sugar Salem, and most of the game, it was actually a bit closer than that. That was due to some free throws at the end and so forth. So they're a good team. And again, their schedule doesn't ease up. When you look at Snake River coming up, Ryrie again, and then Aberdeen, and I'm not saying Aberdeen's wins aren't impressive as well. They do have that conference win over American Falls that is up and coming, but Firth not super good. However, Aberdeen did beat Ryrie and beat a good Marsh Valley team. So it'll be interesting.
And then, of course, the other big question in the 2A ranks from District 5 is, what's Bear Lake going to bring to the table, right? They kind of got hot at the right time last year, got all the way to the 2A state championship game where they fell to Melba in a close battle. Can Bear Lake, run the table again? We'll see. They're off to an 0-2 start so far, and they did lose a lot of talented players. But
Yep, they did. And Melba lost some talent too, but Melba very well might be back there. They're a program that I think they were coming into this year. They're planning to reload rather than rebuild. So, there's going to be some interesting things around the state with 2A.
Yeah, Melba's good. They've already beaten Parma, a 3A power already this year. So, right. Melba looks good. District 6, the nuclear conference in 2A basketball. What do we think here, Lance? Ryrie, of course, is going to be good. North Fremont is always solid. Both those teams are 2-2. And I really think West Jefferson always has great athletes also.
Yeah, I mean, West Jefferson's always been in that mix and in that conversation. They've won some fairly recent state championships too, as we look over the last decade. Very good team. I believe that Ryrie is going to be the team to beat. I think teams are going to have to prove that they can step up and compete with Ryrie once conference comes on a night in, night out basis. And right now, if I was picking a team to win that conference and had to put some Vegas money on it, well, I would put that. And let me just clarify again, I don't gamble. I just use that as an example to really bring out the point. But I do gamble. I bet Mills at Buffalo Wild Wings, but
that's right. You're going to get us in trouble.
I win Mills at Buffalo Wild Wings, but I would pick Ryrie to win that conference.
Yeah, they've won the district 5 years in a row. They've got a great coach in Jake Landon. They've got great players coming back, certainly. Names like Briar Newman, Maggie Ball. So yeah, I agree. Ryrie, but I would say keep an eye on West J also.
Yep. West J could sneak up in that. They could be the spoiler. Of course, we saw that in football this year. We felt that West J was, they weren't a threat to win it, but they were a good enough team to possibly spoil someone's party. And they can do that in basketball as well.
Certainly. 1A D1, 1A D2. These are easier, Lance, because there's only one league for both of these districts, 5 and 6 combined. So the High Desert Conference at the 1A D1 level, Butte County off to a 5-0 start. They're kind of the favorites. But Grace is the defending 1A D1 state champs. But man, Mania Clegg was such a talented post player last year. I'm just not sure how Grace will be able to replicate that success inside.
Yeah. They're going to have a lot of individual scoring from her this year. Individual scoring from the perimeter this year, pardon me, if they want to compete with Butte County. Butte's tough. They're tough to get to the rim against. So it's going to be interesting, but again, Butte's the one that I would pick in that conference.
Yeah, how about this? Butte County went 18-6 last year, Lance. 4 of those 6 losses came to Grace, twice in the regular season, twice at districts.
Yeah. Well, and I think if I'm picking winners of conferences right now, so we can look where we stand at the end of the year, I'm going Butte County. I'm going Ryrie. I'm going Sugar Salem. I'm going Blackfoot. And I'm going with Rigby. That's who I think are going to come out conference champions. Now, things that could change, potentially Skyline, potentially Thunder Ridge, potentially South or Teton, and potentially Grace. So we'll see.
And I think we both agree that Preston and Soda Springs for District 5 conferences both look good. I think I would take Aberdeen over Soda, but you're picking Soda, right?
I am. However, I've only seen game film on Aberdeen. I've seen Soda live. So,
right. Another interesting fact about Butte County is they bring back this really good, group of seniors. Kaya McAfee, Anna Knight, Emily Hansen, Mackenzie Gammett, Maddie Niffen. And then they also bring in a transfer from Alaska. Savannah Bird has come in. She was an all-league player up in Alaska, and she and her family have moved to Arco or the Arco area. And so that's going to be a nice little addition for Butte County as well this year.
Well, it is. And, anytime you add a player that comes in who's had success, that adds strength to a program that's already strong anyway. And so, as the season moves on, we'll see how that plays out in conference.
Yeah, and for Grace, it's basically players that came off the bench last year that are now in the starting lineup, and how they handled the uptick in minutes could determine how Grace goes. Players like Tenley Walker, J.C. Christensen, Melody Stratman, etc. So, and then Chalice is a team that's still kind of rebuilding. But early on, Butte County 5-0, Grace 2-2. Those are the teams to watch out for. And then in the 1A D2 ranks, Lance, we've got this big, gigantic 8-team Rocky Mountain Conference, where in volleyball, like 5 of the 8 teams just kind of beat up on each other. And I have a similar feeling that that's how it's going to go in basketball. When you look at Rockland, Mackey, Ledore, Grace Lutheran, North Gem, I think all of those teams are all pretty solid.
Yeah, I think they are too. And Rockland is one of those teams I think goes into every game thinking they're going to win that. They're a lot of tradition there. Their girls have been very good. But North Gem's another one of those programs that all of their sports are kind of headed north right now. They're doing some good things and having some success. So I think North Gem is kind of the maybe my dark horse for that conference. But Rockland could very well step up and win that again.
And I mean, it bears out in the preseason coaches poll. Mackey and Rockland tied for first. Ledore and North Gem tied for third. Yeah. And so that top half of the league is going to be really fun to watch. Mackey won the district tournament last year and actually got a worse draw at state because of it. Mackey had to play Cary right away in the opening round.
That's right.
Whereas Rockland got Mullen, who won a 2-team league and was making their first appearance at state since 1986.
That's right.
Either way, though, Vern Nelson is one of the great gems of Idaho, longtime basketball coach at Rockland. Yeah. He's just a great guy. I always enjoyed my conversations with Coach Nelson from Rockland. Mackey, of course, we talked about during volleyball season. Kesha Hale does a great job. She coaches volleyball and girls basketball.
That's right. You get a lot of cross duty at small schools.
Yes.
A lot of administrators that coach too at small schools that you don't see at some of the others.
Definitely. And Ledore, I think Ledore is a team that people might be sleeping on that's going to be really good. They have a second-year coach in Janet Pruill, and I think Ledore is going to be really fun to watch this year.
They very well could. The struggle that Ledore has is I believe in that entire group, they are the smallest school in that smallest school size, I think, from a student body standpoint, and oftentimes it's tough to field a competitive team. When you have size challenges and stuff, but Ledore could be good this year.
Yep. So players to keep an eye on. Megan Moore at Mackey is a great post player. Brenna McAfee is another solid player. Rockland has Kearsley Boyer, who I always kind of equate to. She reminds me a lot of Kevin Durant. She's kind of tall and lean, kind of has those long arms like Kevin Durant has, and can play outside and inside.
And can defend outside and inside as well.
Yes, Kearsley Boyer is probably the best all-around player in the conference. The Wilson twins, Addie and Taylor Wilson. At Rockland.
It seems like Rockland almost always has a set of twins on their team. I don't know what it is, or at least a set of sisters.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
I just remember that about Rockland. When Steve Hayes' granddaughter was playing down there in Rockland, they had a set of sisters that were kind of some of their top players as well. And anyway, just interesting.
Yes, and Rockland won the state title just 2 years ago. Kearsley Boyer was the sophomore starter on that team, so they certainly have the potential to run it back. Danica Barfus at North Gem, Mackenzie Mackey at Ledore, Emma Grayson at Grace Lutheran, also some players to keep an eye on. As Lance, I like football, but I love the game of basketball. It's my favorite. So this is like we're in the sweet spot for me personally.
Well, no cold weather announcing. That's one of the good things about basketball. For both of us, it's a strength for both of us, and we're going to have some lively debates and conversations as this season moves forward. But it gives us a great opportunity. We're going to have a lot of opportunities to see if teams pass the eyeball test because we'll cover a lot of these teams. We'll see them as they go different places, and our opinion, just like football, could be wrong, but it could very well be right too. And So we'll see. It'll be fun.
Definitely. So I think maybe what we'll do next week is we'll start the Prepcast by kind of just highlighting what stood out to us from girls basketball from the week that was, and then we'll dive into our boys basketball previews and kind of break down who's looking good on the boys side. And a friendly reminder, you can also see all of this on our website, IdahoSports.com. We've got all of our girls basketball previews posted, and we are working on the boys basketball previews this week and this weekend. So if you don't see your favorite team for boys basketball, just keep checking back. We're putting more and more in each and every day. So, and then all the scores and schedules, just keep checking back every day. Really, you should just make IdahoSports.com your homepage and just set it and forget it. Well, not forget it, but set it and check it every day for all the latest info. So, all right, that'll do it for this edition of the East Idaho Prepcast, brought to you by Pure Adrenaline Motorsports, your source for pulse-pounding adrenaline sports apparel and accessories that ensure you have what you need to unleash your inner beast. For Lance Taylor, I'm Brandon Baney. Enjoy the games, everybody. We'll see you next week on IdahoSports.com.